Hello everybody! I hope you enjoyed the little section of video that I just made there. It took me a couple of minutes and a couple of crashes actually, but besides that, we'll just go into the actual subject of this video. This is a Toshiba Magnia 3030 server. This thing, I will just say right off the bat, is cheap. Plastic front panel, plastic lock. Boy, I'm surprised the side panel's not plastic, but that aside, this is a server, so it does have some degree of quality to it. This server, as you can tell right here, is Pentium 3. And as you might have seen from the first part of the video, it is a dual Pentium 3. Pentium 3 850. Yeah. Now, this computer, I'm not going to tell you where I got it because that's a secret. I got this computer and I went to power it up for the first time. This light came on. Nothing else came on. I pressed the power button, which I'm not going to press because it'll turn it on. And nothing happened. Pressed again. Still nothing happened. I held it for a couple seconds. And again, nothing happened. So, I started to investigate. I went around removing components and doing stuff and, simplifying the configuration as best I could, and there was a no-go. So, after a while and much poking around with my multimeter and stuff, I decided that the motherboard was dead, and so I went and looked for a replacement. I found a couple of sites online where they sold this thing for over $300, the motherboard replacement, and I was like, no. So I went onto eBay and I found one that was selling for $130 with the best offer. So I submitted a $50 best offer and the guy accepted it. But then he raised the shipping price to $45, so I wound up paying $85 in the end. Thank you, eBay seller, except you packed this motherboard in such a way that I've never seen before. And that's not to say that it was bad, it was extremely good. The box was sitting out in the rain, it got rained on, and it had not even gotten through, the first layer of packaging. It was insane. So, kudos for that. So, anyway, the new motherboard came with a gig of RAM, which is right here, because I took it out, it's not ECC. The original RAM was ECC. And 2 processors. So I guess it was a pretty good deal for $85, I guess. Whatever. So, who's ready to see it? Ooh, me. Okay, alright, let's see it. The shroud right now is not installed because it would block the processors. So, dun da da da, and I have my phone camera, or my phone flashlight rather. Here she is, the Toshiba Magnia 3030 with the Intel L440GX Plus. That's the motherboard. You might be noticing this little piece of blue tape right here over that beeper. And that's because as soon as this thing gets to a certain point in post, it starts beeping and does not stop until you shut it off. Annoying. So, here is the inside. You can see the ECC memory there. The 2 processors, one of which needs to be reseated, but I can't figure out how to get the processor out, so I just keep shoving it in whenever it doesn't work. And the SCSI card. It is a AMI Mega RAID, now LSI Logic. So AMI Mega RAID Express 200. It says differently in the BIOS, but I looked on the side of the card and it says Series 466. A bit of Googling led to me saying that the Series 466 is also known as the Express 200, which is helpful, I guess. Here you can see it says Toshiba Magnia 3030. I don't know what non-MB means, but whatever. You can have the serial number if you want, I don't care. It's not like the thing has any warranty on it or anything. So, there are the internals, as you can see, and you might be able to see, let's get this cable a little more out of the way, the insane amount of chips on this board. There's one up there that you can't really see all that well. There's a piece of heat sink right there, which I assume is power delivery. Just insane amounts of chips. Anyway, let's get on to actually doing something with this. We'll explore around in the back and the front before we get started, and then I'll make sure everything's working all right before I boot it up. In the back, you can see the... Oh, God. Sorry. You can see the external SCSI thingy, my flash drive, and the VGA thing with 2 USB 1.0 ports, the printer port, parallel port, 2 serial ports, and PS2 keyboard and mouse, which are plugged in. Here's the power supply. I don't know what it is, nor do I really care. It's just a power supply. And of course, in a Toshiba, it's not going to be all that great anyway. So, yeah. Let's move around to the front. On the front panel, have a blank in the top. Let's get this phone out of the way. A blank in the top. The tape drive, which has a tape. The CD-ROM drive, which works nicely, and the floppy drive, which also works nicely. Opening the front panel, you can see the 6 bays for SCSI hard drives, 80 pin, and the locking mechanism for the side panel. Anyways, let's look at the hard drives. There are 3 hard drives in this, as you might have been able to tell. They're all 72 gigs each, even though Windows 2000 can only support a 137 gigabyte volume. Here they are. One is an HP. The other 2 are compacts of similar but slightly different capacities. Well, no, not capacities. Model numberages. You can see the drive sleds. And Toshiba did an interesting thing. They, on these, well, when I got this, 3 of the hard drives were removed and there were 3 blanks. These are actually blanks, believe it or not. And the reason I can get a hard drive in there is because these little metal inserts, which go right over the, which would go right over the interface, they were riveted. So we just drilled out the rivets, and they came right out. So now I have 3 fully functioning drive rails for drives. So now that I have all the drives in place, we can actually get on to powering this thing up. And if it does what it usually does upon first boot, it will not power up because the one's processor is not seated correctly or something, or the connection's dirty or whatever, so it will do nothing. So here we go. It'll be a slight delay before it powers on. Told ya. Now let's see. The screen will turn on, but these little LEDs on the keyboard will not do a thing. And it has. So now you get to see the process in which I reseat, quote unquote, the CPU. So let's just turn this off. Okay, I guess we're not going to play ball. Okay, so the process in which I reseat, quote unquote, the CPU is as follows. I'm not going to be able to hold this light up here forever though, I don't think so. There, let's go with that. Alright, so now let me show you the process. Yep, literally just push it in. Now I can plug the power back in, and it'll power on automatically since it wasn't shut down cleanly. Or I thought it would. Let's see if it works this time. Just watch those keyboard LEDs. Come on, there we go, yay, it's working correctly now. And if I jump over to the action, here's the stand that I used for the camera, very creative. There's the memory test going, so as you can see, it was not slowed down during the duration of that first part if you thought so. Space exits the memory test, and here we go with the SCSIs. It does, oh, there's the beeping that I was talking about, if you can hear that. It continues forever, and I don't know how to fix it. Now, once I get over here, I'm going to let you listen to the SCSI hardware. So let me jump over there before it starts going. So there you go. That's all the hard drives spun up and seeking, and this little caution or whatever LED will blink until it's done. What is this meowing about? SCSI drives not found at correct positions, drive roaming done by firmware. Oh, okay. It's angry because the drives, I guess, were not put in the correct order, so... Alright, I guess it's alright. Yeah, it's alright, so... It's gonna boot into Windows 2000 now, which will take a while. And in the meantime, I think I'm going to try to put the shroud back on, because having a shroud in place is a nice thing. So, while that boots up, I'll see if I can't put the shroud back in place. Okay, so I've gotten the shroud in place, and I can see from where I am right now, the boot up is finished, and it's at the login screen. So, the shroud is held in place by 2 thumb screws, and here's the fan. You can't really see it in there, but it goes right over the processors and it sucks the hot air off of them. So now I'm just going to note one thing. Having this screw on the outside, if they didn't have this one, would be a bad thing, because then the shroud would fall off. This little piece of metal right here that this part connects to is not actually secured to anything. It can come right off if it so pleases. So that's not really a good thing on your part there, Toshiba. Like, come on. Come on. Alright, so anyway, here's the login. Set this down. And there's a couple things that I tried to put on here. But let's talk about the installation. If I put one of these floppies in, put the yellow one in, put the blue one in actually. Oh, there's hard disk Sentinel, even though I don't want that there. Go away. The installation process was incredibly annoying. Reason being, I have no clue. I tried to install Windows XP at first, and it went okay. It installed fine, and I didn't need any extra drivers, which was a surprise to me. But then when the thing went to boot up, it would act like it's booting up, and it would blue screen with a 0x7B. And there's so many causes for a 7B, it's not even funny, so I was just like, no, not even. I did try one thing though. I found, after digging for a long time, I found drivers for the Express 200, and I put them on a floppy, and I expected them to work, and they didn't. They did not actually contain any drivers for the Express 200, even though it said specifically in the INI file and the other, text files that were in the driver package, it said that was the Express 200 driver, and there was no mention of it in the Windows XP setup, which was a pain in the butt. And when I went to load the closest thing, which was the Express 500, because in the BIOS it says Ultra 2/5, it would say that the sys file that came with it is corrupt and it can't load. And it did the same when I went to install Windows 2000. So I just gave up with that, and Windows 2000 managed to recognize the drivers anyway. And so I installed it. I just installed Windows 2000. And that led to a new host of problems, because Windows 2000 support is even less supported than it was even a couple of years ago. WinRAR, the 4 point whatever version, used to support Windows 2000, the version 5 does not. So that was a problem. I had to go get 4.11. And then when I went to try Linux, which is my benchmarking thing that measures G-flops, that wouldn't work either. So, pain. I really wanted to see how many G-flops this thing could pull, with the dual Okay, sorry about that. Ran out of space on the SD card. As I was saying before the SD card filled up, I wanted to get Linux to see how many G-flops this thing could pull. With being a dual Pentium 3 850, it would have been nice to see if it could get over 1 G-flops, but I don't know. Whatever. I managed to get one stress test program. It doesn't measure G-flops, but it does stress the CPU. So I'll show you that right now. I got both iterations just in case one somehow didn't work on Windows 2000. It would have been annoying. So here it is. It's called Stress My PC. The person or company that makes this makes a whole range of stuff that is not really that useful, to be honest. And this is really the only thing that there is on there. So you can do multiple things. Like you can do the aggressive CPU stress. This is the paint stress, which is the graphics test. You can do HD stress, which is obviously the hard drive stress. So I'm going to do the hard drive stress because I haven't done that. Now, let's see. I'm not sure if it's doing random reads or writes or what. I'll show you right now. And these are the lights that you saw. It's just kind of doing whatever. And that's the disk indicator LED. See? Yeah. Alright, so anyway, back to where we were. Let's open Taskmaker. And there's our CPU. Let's get rid of HD stress. So there you can see our CPU, and since reading and writing in a RAID environment is, especially a RAID 5 environment, is quite taxing to the CPU. It does use a little bit of CPU. So there's that. This is plus to idle. Yeah. Now let's do the CPU stress. And there you can see both of the processors have reached 100% utilization, and there's still about 700 megabytes worth of memory free. So there you have it. I'm not sure how hot the processors actually get, being, 850 megahertz. So scary. To be honest, both of the processors in this probably could be passively cooled. They could survive without the fan, considering there's the big 120 mil fan sitting directly above it, but I wouldn't risk that. That would be stupid. So now let's do the paint stress. I didn't even know that's what it does. But since this is integrated graphics, it seems to be sitting at around 50% utilization on both CPUs. So, well, no, it's about 80 on the one and then 20 on the other. So, yeah, since this has integrated graphics, it's managed by the CPU, so that's that. There's really not much else on this. Speed fan doesn't work on Windows 2000. Access violation address 0, read address of 0. So that doesn't work. There's really not much else on this, to be honest. So I think that's about it. Actually, there's well, actually I can show one more thing. You can see there it says Windows 2000 Service Pack 4, or might be able to anyway. There, now you can see it better. Windows 2000 Service Pack 4, and Stepping 6 and 916. Ooh. I don't know if you heard that bearing noise or not, but that wasn't friendly. Anyway, you can see the 1 gig of RAM, and that's about it. So, back this up. Look at the drive space, the whole 137 gigs, judging by the 24-bit LBA limit thing. 135 formatted. So, wah, I guess. But, whatever. You get what you get. Well, actually, maybe there isn't a 24-bit LBA limitation here, considering this is Windows XP SP4. Or not Windows XP, Windows 2000 SP4. The thing is, as some of you probably know, but I'll explain this to the new people, a RAID 5 volume, or partition, as Windows likes to call it, a volume, it requires 3 drives minimum, And how it does its data protection, or redundancy, or whatever you want to call it, is it uses 2 bits of data and then 1 parity bit. The parity bit references the other 2 regular bits, so if one drive fails in the RAID 3 array, it can be rebuilt using those parity bits. And these bits are put across 3 drives. So it makes sense that for every 2 regular bits you have 1 parity bit, that you would have 1 drive filled up with parity bits. So, or at least, the equivalent of 1 drive filled up with parity bits. You're not going to actually fill up 1 drive with parity bits because then you would leave it vulnerable. But, Wikipedia can probably explain this better than I can, but it makes sense that there's only 140-ish gigs instead of like 300. So, yeah. Alright, enough of my blabbering. Let's shut this baby down. Those bearings are making unfriendly noises. But there we go. You can see my stupid reflection. And there we are. Thank you for watching, people. Have a nice day.